Did you feel that you would be continuing to build someone else's brand rather than your own? Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Estate Agency Entrepreneurs, and today I'm joined by none other than Alex Pelosi-Buchanan. Hello Alex.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm very well, thank you.
Good. How was your trip to Hitchin, the centre of the universe?
It was good. It was a long trip last. I wouldn't quite say quite as the centre of the universe, but you know what they say though, Adam. If they finally do find the centre of the universe, there'll be a lot of disappointed people because they're not in it.
Yeah, fair. Good point. So obviously you're our 9th guest now. You probably know the format now. It's very much trying to find out your background, your history, and what you're up to now, and how you're succeeding, and how you've succeeded with this EXP thing. So take us back to your early days in estate agency. What did that look like?
Early days for me was I think I was about 21, and no, it might be maybe 20, and my mum actually found an advert in the local paper for a local corporate, and it was for a negotiator role. So at the time I was working kind of minimum hours at a video game shop, so I thought, let's just go for it. Went along, obviously corporate, so pretty much there and then they were like, yep, you got the job, and pretty much started a week later. Didn't last too long there, couple of reasons, but kind of mainly I wasn't enjoying the kind of setup. Obviously it was very target driven, but it was a very weird setup in the sense that the person that was doing the registering of the applicant would get the commission, and I was out doing viewings, getting offers together, but then they'd be like, oh well, that's not your commission. And when I said, well, how do I get more commission? So you need to spend more time in the office registering applicants. But when I spent more time registering applicants, they say your viewing numbers are down and everything. It just wasn't the right setup for me, and so I kind of left there and ended up going back doing various jobs. And then one day I was back working in the video game shop, and they cut everyone's hours, and I was just walking through town, and a local independent called Roberts had just opened up, and I walked in and there was the old mortgage advisor from corporate, and I was like, oh Roy, how's it going? And he was like, yeah, good. And I said, any jobs going? And he said, yeah, they are actually looking for an egg. And I went, oh brilliant. So again, pretty much went in for an interview a couple of days later and started, and I was there for 8 years.
Wow.
So that was great. I mean, I much preferred the kind of independent setup.
Did your first experience not put you off then, or did you
No.
see the potential in estate agency?
Oh yeah, I had the bug. I can remember just literally. The first day I did my viewings for the corporate, they pretty much gave me a bag of keys and said off you go, and I didn't know really what to do. And I just kind of copied what Martin Roberts does on Homes in the Hammer. And you could knock this, not having any clue where it's a structural wall. I was like, you could probably knock this down and do this. And I can remember the people actually turned around to me on that very first viewing and said, can I just say, you were great, we really enjoyed looking around with you. That was like my first viewing. So I thought, oh, okay. And I guess I just got that bug, and I like speaking to people. I love, I guess very early on I kind of got that bug for actually trying to problem solve, and it's a nice balanced job. I mean, I haven't worked in a video game store and packing boxes in warehouses. It just felt like a good fit for me, and I'd never been very academic in school. Mainly because I was off in bands and wasn't really paying attention, didn't go to university, so I've been struggling to find something that I really seemed to enjoy, and I guess I'd always enjoyed kind of selling in a way, and I'd done a bit of recruitment, and just kind of I got that bug, and going back into it, I guess it reignited my love for it, and so I was there for 8 years, and over that 8-year period I only progressed to an assistant branch manager. Very much my manager was very much set, she was happy in what she was doing, but as time went on, she was working less at the time because she just had a baby, and I was taking more on. I was doing all the viewings, I was doing the listings, the valuations, I was doing all the floor plans, the photos, and I just thought there's got to be more out there, and that's when I kind of took the leap and I went to work for a new firm back in 2019, and that was a big eye-opener for me because it was a very different setup, very big on marketing, very big on advertising. I'm sure you won't mind me saying, great company called Archer & Co in Chepstow, which also had a couple of fine and country licenses, so really got thrown into what I see as the real world of agency in the sense of with the marketing, the global side of things, and it just really opened my eyes that there is more to this again, and kind of you kind of easily to fall into that trap of thinking, you've kind of learned everything and you're a good agent. And actually being thrown in that situation very quickly, I realised, right, there were a lot of better agents out there, and I've always strived to learn from those agents. So
what role did you go in now?
So I went in as a valuer,
okay.
But then kind of became branch manager. And
what was different about it? Like, what was, just give us an example on either marketing or the way that they set up targets or culture. What were the things?
I think it was very much the fact that they kind of based everything on, it was like kind of presentation, exposure and service. So it was very much about presenting the houses to the best of your ability, professional photography, whereas the other places I was taking the photos myself. And obviously exposure, we were doing social media, we were doing, obviously with the Fine and Country side of things as well, there was a lot more national advertising as well. So it was really making sure the properties were exposed to the widest marketplace, and then service levels were, we would do things like viewing 7 days a week. We would do, we had things like Moneypenny, so we were able to take calls all the time. So it really kind of felt like a much different office, but it was mainly when it came down to things like dealing with offers, whereas before we'd very much, sell it to the first buyer. It was more, no, we're going to slow things down, we're going to get lots of people through, we're going to create competition, and it was a very different way. Whereas before it was very much, I think, probably based on the fees we were charging. That was probably the biggest thing. I went from, charging low set fees, 0.75% to pretty much the director Joe saying, well, we're doing 1.5%, and Fine and Country was 2%. So I got thrown into that, having to go out and quote bigger fees as well. So I kind of learned a lot there.
How do you deal with that? I mean, that's 1.5% was easy back in 1997 when I started. We charged 1.95%, but
yeah.
So, but going from 8% or less than 1% to 1.5%, that's a big transition. How did you deal with that? How were you trained to deal with that?
I just think that you kind of just initially I found it quite difficult because I think I was losing instructions, and I think when you quote a fee, I think if you don't deliver the value that's attached to it, I think that's where you kind of set yourself up for fail, because the client's not going to pay more for something unless they think you're different from everything else out there. If you're going in and saying the same things as everybody else, they'll say, well, we'll go with the other option because they're basically the same as you. So I had to learn how the marketing and everything that we did would extract the best price for the client, and why more people would choose, why more buyers were attracted to our properties, because the better the marketing we do, the more eyeballs we get on the property, the more eyeballs, the more inquiries, more viewings, the more offers. So it was trying to translate that to the client, but I think half of it was just having the confidence to say this is what we charge. But what I did initially was we started at kind of 1%, just again because it was something I was a bit more comfortable with. I can remember we just kind of angled it up every now and again. I go 1.1, 1.2, and it was as I kind of felt more confident we weren't getting those pushbacks, as well 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and I guess 1.5 is where we felt comfortable, and for what we offered, and especially again in the area we were at, it was still one of the more expensive fees that we were charging. So, but to be fair, most people over that period were happy to pay that. So probably could have pushed it higher, but that's what we were comfortable at.
It's like you say, it's confidence, it's showing the value. If you're doing professional photography and in your old role you're taking the own photos, it's one of those, I always often think, I used to do my own photos, so I'm not knocking anyone who does, because that's what I never had professional photography, but actually in hindsight when you look at it you think, well, I'm not a photographer, I'm an estate agent. Yeah. My job as an estate agent is not to take photos, otherwise I'll be doing that wedding at the church on Saturday.
Well, there is a quote that says you wouldn't ask an estate agent to take photos of your wedding. You would get a professional in, and it's a time thing as well, and it's something, since I've started my business, it was one of the first things I did was think, I want a professional photographer, I want a professional videographer, because my time isn't best spent sat there until 1 o'clock in the morning editing a video that needs to be out the next day. I'd rather give that to somebody else who I know is going to do a much better job, so I see them as an investment versus a cost. But I think it's just, like I said, it's demonstrating that value, and now in my business now, it's what's attracting people to me, because people say, you do the best videos, you do the best photos, so people are just gravitating towards me. One of my biggest instructions that I got, basically contacted me through the website and said, we've come across you, we've seen your marketing, we think your marketing would suit our house, would you like to come and see us? And there was no address, nothing, and so I rang the number and they gave me the address, and as I was putting it into Sprift, up popped this 11-acre equestrian facility, and I was like, oh my god, and I was just on the phone to them and went and saw them. And yeah, they just said, look, we've been seeing you on Facebook, and we've been, a few other people have mentioned they've seen what you're doing, and that got me the instruction. Now, had I not invested in video at the start of my business, I probably wouldn't have got through that door, because that's what was making me stand out from everybody else. And they'd been on with some of the big kind of country boys, if you will, like Savills and Knight Frank. They'd kind of tried some kind of more luxury agents in the past, but it hadn't worked. And at the moment, it is under offer. And hopefully that's going to exchange and complete in August. So so that would be...
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Come back to that. So you did Archer & Co.
Yes.
Nod to Archer & Co. Hi Joe, we really like Joe, don't we?
We do.
How long were you there for? 4 years?
5 years, almost 5 years. I joined in 2019, and it was a hell of a journey. And I've got going back to Joe, the biggest respect for everything that he did. And what he taught me as well. He invested a lot of his time in me, and took me to kind of conferences and boot camps and all of that. So that's what really immersed me. But started in 2019, obviously then COVID happened, and I stayed working through COVID. So to be fair, I lined up a load of instructions post-COVID. As soon as lockdown ended, I'd been doing virtual valuations. So literally we had about something like 20 listings ready to go to the market post-lockdown. So we kind of came out the gates really strong, and obviously I started doing videos, so I was around filming properties. So we were one of the first agents in our area to do the kind of walk round tours, even before it was compulsory. I was doing them before lockdown. So we really came out the gates running, and I was really proud that we grew that business from one branch of about 7 of us to 4 branches with probably 30, 40 staff. And it was an amazing experience to kind of be part of that and be part of that growth. But I guess over time, I felt that because I was listing a lot of houses myself and managing a branch and overseeing other branches, I was kind of getting pulled left, right, and centre, and it was kind of grinding me down over time. And I've always felt there's always got to be something more, and I think that's where I've always strived. I've always felt there's got to be something more I can go to, something better I could be doing, and yeah, that's where I'd had the conversation then that. With Joe at the time, I'd like to go self-employed, and initially I was going to go self-employed through them, but as time went on I kind of decided, well actually I think I need to really go out and do my own thing, and that's kind of where it felt that and I guess looking at various models, that's where I landed on EXP. Was just the idea of having my own branding, other than obviously my name with EXP. Everything else was pretty much down to me of how I wanted it to look, where I wanted to operate, how I wanted to operate. It gave me so much flexibility, and it's just what felt was the right. After having that initial chat with Ben, and obviously then with you as well, it just kind of really felt that was the right move for me, and it was obviously just coming up to a year now in September.
Wow. So you there was an option on the table potentially to go self-employed with Archer & Co.
Yeah. So cause we already had a self-employed person who was operating in the area, so we kind of had the setup there. But I think what it came down to, it was no shy on what Archer & Co offered, but it was very much that because we already had branches in most of Monmouthshire, my hometown Abergavenny was the only place that we didn't have a branch. So that felt like I'll go back to my hometown and I'll open up my own little self-employed operation there. But I guess as I looked at the numbers more and more, I would have been restricted to go into postcodes that were with the branches or with the other self-employed associate. And some of these places were 5 minutes drive from my house, and I thought people will gravitate towards agents in Abergavenny for those areas sometimes, and I kind of felt that it would be a bit too constrictive, and there were other areas I could have gone into, but having worked in Monmouthshire for the last 13 years of my life, I kind of felt that I needed to be able to do my own thing, and pretty much obviously with there being no restrictions with EXP, I was able to go and list properties in whatever area I saw fit. And
did you feel that, and again we love Joe and Archer & Co, but did you feel that you would be continuing to build someone else's brand rather than your own?
Yeah.
Was there an opportunity to exit, for example, to walk away, take your properties with you, that kind of thing? I mean, obviously that's.
I said, to be fair, I don't know if we've really got into those kind of conversation in regards to if I could have exited as such, but I think that obviously predominantly it was the Archer & Co brand, then with the agent, and I was really proud of what we built at Archer & Co, and but obviously regardless of how much I guess I felt I was involved, it was never it was never going to be my baby. It was always, Joe's business, and like I said, I was really proud to be part of the journey that we had. But this has allowed me to go and build my own. This is mine. And like you said, I have got that ability. Not that I've got any intentions to, but I could technically turn around to you and say, right, Adam, I'm off and doing my own thing, and to be able to do that, because again, there are other models where you don't have that ability to do that. The properties would stay with them, and I just think.
Well, why? Let's talk. I mean, we'll probably come on to that later. But why don't you do that? You're a year in. You've got a massive pipeline. We'll come on to pipelines in a bit.
Yeah.
But what is the reason? Why is it that you stay? And so many hundreds of other people stay? Because they could all leave. I mean, there's hundreds of people that could just leave. So, in 2 weeks' time, take everything with them. And why don't you? And why don't others?
I think, again, when I was deciding on, who would I want to align my business with, I think self-employment as it is, even now, is lonely. It's a lonely game, and I think that if you're completely out on your own, you can't just ring the agent across the road and say, hey guys, I'm having a bit of a problem with this, could you give me some advice please? Or they're just going to say, F off, I'm not going to tell you how we're getting all these instructions. But it's kind of being part of something that is so much bigger. It is your own business, and it's a weird mix, because when you look at, like, from even a global sense, but just from a national sense, being able to be part of WhatsApp groups and be able to message people on Workplace and having that support. I mean, I've had a few issues. One particular client I had an issues with, and it was great just to be able to message Tori and the team there and just say, I'm having a bit of a problem. And they were able to obviously come back to me and say, right, this is what we need to look into, and having that support, but also like feeling part of something bigger. And I guess that when I looked at, because I've always tried to be the best I possibly can, and I think that's always just me trying to prove to myself that I can do what I feel I'm good at. But when you look at the 600 agents, you think, well, what a great thing to be part of something so much bigger. And then when you look at it globally, and obviously like the opportunities we went to Lisbon. And obviously there's the conference in Miami as well, and thinking there are so many opportunities to do these other things. You don't have to do them, and that's the thing. You're not forced. No one's holding a gun to your head and saying you have to come to these things. But it's obviously in your interest to do them. In my opinion, I think you should go to those kind of things. But having those opportunities, and I think there are lots of little small models out there, but will you get those opportunities to do those things? Probably not. And I just kind of looked at it and thought, well, if I was going to have anyone in my corner, why not choose one of the biggest real estate brands in the world? And that's what was kind of thought, well, that just feels like the right move for me. And I think if I'd done it all on my own, let's face it, the cost would have been through the roof. And you do hear people saying, oh yeah, just I got my own because, I'll get 100% of the commission. But you think, yeah, but your overheads are like this, and just thinking, and if the market turns tomorrow, I'm not going to have the portals chasing me down for bills. I'm not going to have and knowing that you've got that kind of backing from the AML side of things, and having all of that ready set up, and like you say, it's a business in a box. And for me, just to pay that desk rent or however that monthly fee, and just know all that's covered, that if something happened to me, if suddenly I fell ill or my wife fell ill or we had a family emergency and suddenly I had to tone the business down, I wasn't thinking I've still got these massive bills to pay. I could literally turn it off tomorrow and just nurture my pipeline over the next 6 months and know that there's still money coming in, and then when I'm ready I can turn it back on again. So I guess having that kind of freedom, and people say, oh, you give away 30% of your fee, but I said, yeah, but only for the first 24 grand. After that I keep 100% of it. So my goal is to make sure that I'm getting to that 24 grand as quickly as I can, and then the rest of it is mine. So I'd much rather give away £24,000 of my money a year, and actually not have that massive overhead every month, worrying that if something does change, I've got to foot the bill. And I think that's where so many businesses do fail. It just comes down to overheads, I think, and it's about cash flow.
Yeah, well, I always used to think that, and I would imagine it's the same for most estate agency businesses, that you're 2 months away from going out of business. It's literally, you have 2 bad months, or you're ill for 2 months and you're out of action, and either you're on your own or the staff decide not to perform for whatever reason. You are 2 months away, because those overheads of staff, of portals, of CRMs, of website hosting, AML, like the list is endless. IT support, HR support, all of this stuff.
Well, and that's the thing. If I was going to go open a branch tomorrow, people say, oh, why don't you get a branch on the high street? I said, because number one, I'm going to staff it. And I said that for me to be able to do what I want to do and the way I want the business to look, I can't replicate myself. I'm relying on other people to carry my brand for me. And especially in those early days, again, biggest respect to anybody who takes that leap to open and people still do it now. They still open that branch from scratch. But you need to have at least 100 grand in the bank, in my opinion, to be able to open a branch and make it successful and invest the money that you need to make it successful. And I suppose that's what stopped me in the past, is that I looked at even before I joined Archer & Co, there was Purple Bricks, and I kind of looked at it and thought, but that didn't quite align with kind of, I guess, how I would do business in terms of how it was kind of operating. It didn't really feel right for me. But there was no real options other than like kind of, I guess, Finding Country were doing it, and they were the only real self-employed model I was kind of aware of. But I think it was when I went to one of the boot camps in 2019, and I obviously just joined Archer & Co, and we were sat in this boot camp, and they did a bit of an awards thing, and they had these caps that they gave out to people who joined the 10k club and the 20k club and the 50k club. And they said, we're going to give out, and then I can't remember who it was, but one of the agents got a 50k club hat, and that is an agent who's exchanged on £50,000 worth of fees in a month. I just remember being sat there and thinking, that's like more than my salary for the year, and that's just in a month. And I thought, bloody hell. And I guess that's where kind of a little light bulb went off at that point. But then of course COVID came along, and then we had the rush of the market after that. But I guess because we had other self-employed agents working with us, I was seeing what they were doing, the numbers they were doing. So it was always in the back of my mind that I think that's what I'd like to do.
I think we've been indoctrinated in the UK over the years, and certainly until probably 5 years ago when EXP came along, where you believe you can only earn 50 grand a year, and you don't believe you can earn 50 grand a month. But that is the reality of some people. Not every month, but certainly a thing. Going back to when you first started thinking about leaving Archer & Co and joining EXP, I'm always interested in the support they had from their friends and family, the fear levels, and how you overcame that. So, what did your friends and family think of you leaving a really comfortable job? You built up this business. You've got 4 branches. You've done amazing for 4 or 5 years, off the back of out of the back of COVID, when we all thought we were all going to
perish.
Yeah, exactly. Your friends and family must have thought you were nuts, didn't they? They must have tried to dissuade you from doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been taught, my wife was worried. I think because in the past, my wife had seen other people, I suppose, start businesses and they didn't work out, and it put them in very difficult situations. She was always very wary of it, and I think that my wife's family were quite keen to say, why don't you go into partnership or directorship? Wouldn't you just rather do that because it's already there? And it's already there. I wave my hands a lot, by the way, so that's an outsource that. But in terms of they were very concerned that why don't you just go there because it's already set up for you. And I just always said, look, but I could do my own thing, and in my head I knew I could do it. And I guess in terms of timing, I know that everybody says, I wish I'd done it sooner, and there's certain elements of it that you do think now, I wish I'd done it sooner. But I know right now was the right time, because my wife had a very good job, lucky she's worked her way up, so we had the salary there. We managed to bring our debts down over the last couple of years as well, so that meant that it just felt like the right time. Everything kind of aligned, the desire to do it, but also because I think that I know they say there's never a good time to do it, but I think there are sensible times to do it. That like I said, for me, obviously going from having a salary to no salary at all was the biggest concern for my wife. But I was
fortunate. How did you convince her? What did you do to convince her?
I told her we'll go on a really nice holiday once it's all, and I'm taking her to Miami. So
okay, cool.
So yeah.
So that was the carrot. But how did you get her to trust you that you would be able to get to that nice holiday?
I think I just said, I think she knew how much passion and desire I had, because I'd be on my laptop until 12 o'clock at night creating a PowerPoint presentation to do a training session with the team the next day, and I'd be constantly on the phone, and she knew that I had the desire to do it. And I was, even though I was not contracted to work weekends off the Saturdays and Sundays, I was ringing people, I was dealing with situations in the office, so she knew it's what I love. She knows, because she's actually done a little, I think she's been filming me in the background when I've been out and about doing things that we should be doing, family stuff, because I'll be on the phone or on my laptop doing something. But she knows it's what I live and breathe. She knew the passion was there. I think just for her it was just that financial concern, but I was fortunate enough that I did have a little bit of money from some inheritance that I was able to use just to keep the wolves from the door, and a little bit of money to kind of put into marketing. So I had that bit to get me through. But
how much did you have?
Well, it was about 20 grand was what I had. But
how much of that has gone?
Oh, it's all. I mean, that's combined with putting stuff on. I mean, to be fair, the credit cards that I got rid of very quickly got filled back up. So I have, and that's the thing. I know that it's always a risk, but without risk, there's no reward. And now I'm in a position now where those credit cards are now getting paid off again. So it has been a lot of months of kind of feeling that building up, and I guess that was the anxiety as things weren't completing, is that because the sales took a lot longer than I was expecting, because I think I had my first, and I officially my anniversary is 1st of August, but I officially started 1st of September, and I had loads of about 5-6 listings to begin with. I didn't get my first sale till December. It just was really tough.
So September to December. So December was your first completion.
No, my first sale.
Oh, your first sale.
Yeah. My first completion wasn't until March.
Okay, so you went 6. Okay, so 6 months. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
about right. We always say the average completion is in month 5.
Yeah.
So you tripped over by a month, which is because that's the average is 5. So 5.4 actually is.
Yeah.
Is what we've calculated. So how did you? No, actually, going back to the money question, I was going to ask. Do you think? It's probably a slightly loaded question, but answer genuinely. Do you think it's important to have that skin in the game where you're up to your eyeballs on credit cards in order to motivate you to succeed?
Yeah, because it's kind of mounting in the background, and hopefully my mum doesn't listen to this, because I don't think she knows about the credit cards. But hi, mum. But I think you needed to know. Knowing that was building, it kind of. It's, I think, like everyone said, it has to work when you're looking at your business. There's no one else to do the work for you. It's on you. So you if you're going to take that risk, you've got to run with it. You can't just spend all that money and then kind of sit back and expect it all to happen. I've literally worked 7 days a week for the last, almost a year now, other than the odd little bit off here and there. But, I think you've got to be willing to put, as they say, the input will equal output. And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people might fall into self-employment, coming out of employment, and perhaps feeling that they've been used to their diary being filled, and they've been used to having other people to do viewings and or do their admin. It's all on you. You have to do it. And I guess it was just trying to get my head in the game. And obviously there's always going to be down days, but it's just always trying to remind myself that I have to be doing something, because if I do nothing will happen. And I've said this to you in the past. If you do something, something will happen. And it's where I've said yes to things, and just saying, right, if I'm going to do this properly, I want good photography, I want good videos, because I knew that's how the business would succeed. Without doing those things, I don't think it would be where it is. And so I had to take that risk and invest in those things. And like I said, so that's why it's probably cost me more to set up than perhaps what some people would do.
But do you think that if you'd have had more money, would you have been more laid back about it? If you'd have had 50 grand in the bank, 20 grand is a decent chunk of money. Would you have taken it a bit easy? I sometimes think that people they say to me, I've got 15 grand, but I need 30 or 40. And I'm saying, no, you don't. That's going to make you too relaxed.
I think, I completely agree. I think if you've got a massive pot of money that's ever ending, then you're just going to think, and then it's a bit like when you're employed, because you've got your salary, you've got your car paid for, and you might only be making 100, 200 quid out of a sale, say. So if it doesn't exchange that month, you're like, it'll happen next month, and it doesn't make a bigger dent. Whereas now you're like, this has to exchange this month. I need this to exchange. So you're on the phone, you're trying to get that exchange across the line, or trying to make sure that they're at least lining up for the next month. And it just changed your mindset on it. It's a complete, and I think that's probably the biggest transition for me, has been the psychology behind that transition from becoming an employed agent to becoming a business owner. That's been the hard learning, because there's been so much that I've had to learn. Obviously, accountancy, my accountant's constantly screaming at me saying, look, I need this from you, I need that from you. But again, it's that transition to being a business owner and learning how to manage your time, and that you have to have a slightly different structure. But having all those hours in the day, especially when I first started, being sat at a desk with nothing and thinking, right, where do we go from here? And it was like, right, just need to get stuck in.
So and briefly, where the first instructions come from?
My first instructions was funny enough down the pub, just speaking to a guy, and he said, I'm doing a house up at the moment. I was like, oh, right, okay, fair enough. So when I met him, but my first formal instruction was a place where I'd just written a letter to, because it'd been on the market it'd been on with this other agent for 9 months, and just one of the first letters I sent, and it just so happened it was an empty property, because it was his mother's home, who was in a home, and he just happened to go and picked up my bright red envelope and said, oh yeah, and he actually rang me up and said, would you like to come and see it, because actually I'm seeing a few other agents because we're thinking of switching. So that was my first instruction.
Did you sell it?
Yeah, sold it. Fortunately, it did take a little bit longer because sadly the mother passed away, so we had to go through probate. So that one's actually completing at the end of this month, which
God, that's taken a while.
That's just seeing that one there. It's been a very painful conveyancing process as well. But anyway, that's a completely different podcast. But yeah, winning that first instruction was like, okay, this could work. And
how did that feel? Because I remember my first instruction, I thought, wow, someone will actually trust me with their biggest asset.
Yeah, I mean, it took a bit of convincing because, to be fair, and I was honest with him. I said, look, I'll be honest with you. I've got no other houses. You know, literally, you would be my first one. And he did say, and he said, Al, right, the only concern we've got with you is that you haven't got anything else on the market. And I just said to him, well, I can tell you one thing. You're going to get 100% of my time because at the moment I've got no other listing. So if I come across a buyer, guess whose house I'm going to show him? I'm going to sell him yours. And he said, oh, I like that. He said, go on then, let's do it. And it was just that kind of really empowering feeling that, okay, I've got this. And like I said, got that one and started meeting buyers and having conversations. And obviously having that listing, I was able to do a video, which I was able to show to other potential clients. And they just kind of came on from there. And again, very early on, I did all sorts of different prospecting. I was sending letters. I was doing like local community videos. Did like 12 days of Christmas giveaways at Christmas, and I was doing all these prospecting things. And that's where it kind of all, I think, then come January, February, it suddenly seemed to just snowball from there.
So January, February, you started snowballing.
Yeah.
So you're 4 or 5 months into your marketing. You're doing a lot of video, social media, local community stuff. What's your Facebook page so that people can check it out, or your Instagram page? What do you use more of?
Both. So I do a lot with both. I co-post on a lot on both of them. So I grew the Facebook page. I'm up, I think 1.7 thousand followers now. So 1,700 followers. So, but in the early days, I did like a giveaway competition, like a like and share for a local restaurant, and then I was doing the community giveaways. So that would every day people would basically have to like and share the post, but obviously as people are liking it, you can invite them to follow your page, and so that helped me get a good local following.
How demoralising is it? Frankly, it's demoralising, I think. But how demoralising is it, and how do you get through that barren spell of posting on social media, on Facebook and Insta, and not getting any instructions?
I don't know, because I was getting them. Like that. I said, to be fair, I toned down. I mean, like I said,
you were getting them from letters, though, weren't you?
Well, the first one was, and then I was doing like door knocking. I mean, I was doing a bit of everything. You know,
yeah.
I said, I've talked about this before. Whereas, you know, I kind of look at marketing as like fishing. If you put one rod out, you catch one fish. You need to put lots of rods out. So I know some people take more of the opinion that find one, focus on it. But I was doing like the automated. I had boosted ad for the valuation tool going out. I had. So I was door knocking. I was, like I said, basically just trying to be everywhere. You know, I was just really trying to make myself stand out, and it just people seemed to gravitate towards that. The suddenly people were saying, well, the biggest thing I probably did, how could I forget, is I had 25 boards that I had no properties for, and I got friends and family to put them up all around the town in the gardens.
Oh, that's naughty.
It said hello Abergavenny on them, so it didn't say.
But technically, so this is a little.
All right, maybe cut that bit out then.
No, keep it in. Look, I've said many times to the guys that have joined. I said, you know, we're going to war here. You're starting a business. You're going to war. You're not going to a tea party, so you've got to bend some rules now and again. And so the rules are for local councils is you're not supposed to put advertiser boards up outside people's houses without permission, basically, unless it's a political sign. Then you would have seen a lot of them recently. Then you can put political signs up, or religion, I believe, is allowed.
Now this is an interesting point, because when I did my boards, I had Alex Pelosi-Buchanan powered by EXP for sale, sold. That was what they would look like. But I ordered these Hello Abergavenny slips with my face on them. So obviously they said Alex Pelosi-Buchanan, Hello Abergavenny. Now what it didn't say on my boards, which in hindsight I kind of thought I should have done, was put estate agent on them, because my boards are navy and yellow.
Yeah.
Now, so these boards up went around Abergavenny, and people were genuinely saying, "What are all these boards?" And they thought because they're like navy and mustard, they thought, "Oh, this is like an election." People thought there was some. I was up for election. They were like, "Who's this Alex Pelosi-Buchanan?" And even though I'd worked for the town for 8 years, I mean, since I double-barreled my name, and it'd been 5 years since I'd been out of town, and I'd grown a beard and put on some weight, so I didn't really look like the same agent that left, but. Initially, I thought I was kicking myself because people were saying, "Oh yeah, I wonder what they were." We didn't know what it was, and I was thinking. But then I spoke to somebody else. He said, "Oh, everyone in the village is talking about it. Everyone's like, what are these boards?" you know, and then I said, well, actually, do you know what's done? It's create curiosity, and people say, oh yeah, we were going up and scanning the QR code.
Do you remember the advert when Orange first came out? And this is a long time ago. And there was an advert that came out with an orange screen, and it said Orange. It didn't tell you that it was a mobile phone. It didn't tell you everything. And they did that for about 2 or 3 months before they then revealed what Orange was.
Yeah.
I always remember that, and we did a very similar thing in Hitchin. Here we booked ordered 20 boards. And we put hello. We didn't put hello Hitchin. We should have done, but we put hello.
Yeah.
And we put a little bit of wording on the board that said, "Oh, we're an estate agency that's slightly different." Don't know whatever we put. I can't remember now. But it got everyone talking because everyone was like, "Hatched. What is this weird board on the?" And we put the boards on the piss basically. They were on a slant. So everyone, they looked like they were slanted just the way the graphics had been done, and said hello, and everyone was thinking, "What is this?" So you're right. It was a brilliant way of introducing yourself to the town.
You can go in or out of Abergavenny without seeing my fact. Literally every position, like I had roundabouts and places I probably shouldn't have done. But you know what? It created curiosity. It got the phones ringing.
And break a few eggs to make an omelette, mate.
Well, exactly. And I managed to get them just before the Abergavenny Food Festival happened, where there were about 10,000 people arriving in Abergavenny for a weekend, from obviously all over, but a lot of people locally go to the festival. So that really, and all of a sudden people say, "God, you've got a lot of houses for sale." And it was just that whole thing that people...
It's that perception, isn't it?
There was that perception. Oh, I haven't actually had people ringing up saying, "Oh, can I view the one on Lower Monk Street?" I said, "Oh, look, I'm really sorry. It's actually a friend's house, but are you selling anything?" They went, "Oh, actually, yeah, we are thinking of putting our house in the market. Great, when can I come see you?" So it was a great way just to get the phone ringing and to get, and that was probably one of the best things that I did.
So technically you need permission for that, just for anyone who's listening or watching.
Yeah.
But it is a brilliant way of doing it. If you're prepared to break a few rules and you want to, and you have to when you're starting a business, you've got to break some rules. There's no question about it. I'm not advocating it. I'm not encouraging people to do it. Oh my God, I get in trouble for this. But the local council, so what happened to us? Another estate agency business complained to the local council. They phoned me up, said you need to remove your boards. That was I put them up on the Sunday. I got the phone call on the Monday afternoon, so literally within 24 hours. And I said to them, "I'm really sorry, I'm not around this week. I can take them down next Sunday." So I got a week's worth of advertising out there, so I was quite lucky.
I got a month. I had no call. I left. I got to the point I thought, I've got to take these down now, because it's like getting to the point where, I mean, 1 or 2 went missing. There was a few that went from certain positions, but I got to the point I thought I better take them down. But I think maybe because the food festival had been on, they had a lot of other stuff going on, so I just think maybe it just didn't. But anyway.
No, take it. It's a great tip. It's a really good tip, and I would certainly not encourage it, but encourage it. Anyway, so we're coming to the end of this, so I just want to know some figures really, where you're at. So you're a year in, how much have you, you don't have to tell us if you don't want it, but how much have you banked? Your first completion came in 6 months, that was March, so we're now filming this in late July, early August time, so how much of money have you seen in the last 3 or 4 months?
Well, so like I said, my start date, my anniversary date is August, but I didn't start until the September, but so kind of 10 months, if you will, from when I started. But so far to date, I've exchanged on £73,000 worth. Frustratingly, my anniversary date is 1st of August. I had 2 fall-throughs that were just about to exchange, and also 2 completions that have been delayed till August. So they exchanged.
So the significance of that is that you'd hit your cap.
Yeah, it wasn't. I knew my first year wouldn't be about benefiting from the cap, but it would be kind of that little accolade that I did it. But
there's very few people who cap.
I know, but it was. I always like to think, right, I want to do it. I was really. And at one point, I thought I was going to do it, then I didn't. Then suddenly, a load of exchanges come through. I thought maybe I can do it, but like I said, to have done that in the last, pretty much most of that's happened in the last 2 months. So I've had about 50-something thousand in the last 2 months, which.
Wow.
If I look at it in terms of exchanges and what I've been paid on, so I've been paid on 50,000 in terms of completions,
so therefore you would have received 35,000 of that, because we take the 30%. Obviously, how much were you earning at Archer & Co?
Well, as I said, I was a senior manager, but that was about 50k ish with other
so you've
benefits.
Done, 3/4 of your entire salary before in 2 months. I know it's taken 8 months to get there. But what does your pipeline look like now? At
the pipeline at the moment, I've got 121,000 in there, with another 2 sales to add today actually, so that'll go up to 129,000. So if you combine my kind of what I've got under offer and what I've exchanged on, I've done just over £200,000 worth of fees since, and most of that started in December when those sales happened. So it's been a very busy kind of 6-7 months, if you will. But
so even if we do the maths on it, so 130,000 pipeline, let's say 20% of that falls through roughly, so you probably take off 26,000 of that, so you're down to 104,000. That 104,000 will probably go through in the next 4 months.
Oh yeah,
25 grand a month.
Well, my goal now is that I want to cap by Christmas.
Yeah,
that's the.
And my point is, you'll bank double what your entire salary was in the next 4 months.
Yeah.
In a third of the year, basically.
Yeah.
Double in a third. So basically, in essentially in a 2-month period, you learn the same as you didn't.
Which is, Matt, obviously, I did all the projections and cash flow diagrams. I mean, all that's gone to completely different to how I expected. And I think that, I'm not afraid of saying that, money wasn't one of the motivators for doing this. And I think that, for me, money gives you options. And already, it's changed. I can see it changing our lives. And I know everyone says it's life change, but it is. I'm looking at what could happen in the next 4 months and being able to do things that me and the wife haven't been able to do for years. And, I spoke to Ben more about this, that, I was at the point, even when I was employed in that salary, that there were months I couldn't put fuel in the car. Well, I could, but it was all on credit cards, and I was just put, it was, and being able to live paycheck to paycheck, not really feeling like I was going anywhere, and just, now it's going to be a completely different lifestyle. And like I said, knowing that that's my asset, it's my business, it's not somebody else's, and knowing that I can still afford to pay myself a salary out of the business, which I was on before, but have all the other benefits of having a business and also have an asset. 12 months ago, it's just mental to think that 12 months on, not even 12 months, like I said, real 10 months since I actually pulled the trigger and started from day one. It's just insane. I'm excited. But I think in total, if you combine what I've listed, what I've got on the market now, and what I've got under offer and what's exchanged, I think I would have done about just over £400,000 worth of fees, as in business available, which is just mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, isn't it? That'll take you 8 years to earn. Quick maths.
Yeah.
So just very, very briefly, because we are coming to the end of this, what's the future? What's the future plans for your business, either with EXP or without EXP?
No, it's going to be with. I mean, I've obviously with speaking to. I mean, I've kind of switched and changed because I was, contemplating the kind of team setup, because I'd love to kind of help other agents do what I've done, and I think the team setup could be perfect for that. I guess the difference is when we were in Lisbon and they were talking about to team or not to team, and Leo Pajira said about whether you're better off raising your price point, in terms of growing a team, would that be better for you to create more revenue? So I kind of switch and change a bit, but I think that for me, I would like to grow a little network of agents. I think that'd be whether they're local or obviously elsewhere in the UK. I'd love to kind of have some people to mentor, and because I did enjoy doing that in my previous role. But right now I'm just in this for, building something I can be proud of, and something that I can look back on in years to come and actually think, do you know what, I'm proud of what I've done, and know that that I did it. I think I'd always kick myself if I look back and not done it. And I think that was the biggest thing. And I think that, for me, I always bring it back to, why I'm doing this, which is, it kind of ties in my wall. I know people talk about hitting the wall, but my wall is always kind of behind me. It's always that position where I look back where I was in my first assistant manager role, earning 25 grand a year. And I was in all sorts of financial, again, money, credit cards, not being able to pay it off. And I look back now and think I don't want to be back there again. So for me, it's making sure that I build something to ensure that me and my family will never be in that situation. And, when we eventually get around to having kids, I want to be able to give them everything that, my parents gave me. So I'm excited.
Fantastic. That's a good why. So as you've heard me say at the end of this podcast, but also internally quite a lot, you can't build a great estate agency without great estate agents, and you, Alex Pelosi-Buchanan, are a great estate agent. So congratulations on everything you've done.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Good.